Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marlene. Welcome back. For this video, I want to address the concept of the higher self. It is a term we hear since it is mostly used in the New Age like terminology, and we can say that in other religions they can call it an angel or a god. And from our 3D perspective, we can say it's our future self, as well as a multi-dimensional being that can exist simultaneously in different realms. So according to the material of the Law of One by Ra, the higher self is a sixth density being. So if we go back to the densities, each density has its own lesson, purpose, and the sixth density's purpose is to guide its previous incarnations all the way up to the sixth density to keep polarizing positive, so that on the seventh density they can finally unify with Source, with God, and then I guess like start all over. So from the sixth density, it is a collective consciousness. So it's not like a specific self or person or soul. It is a collective of consciousness. And from the sixth density, its work or job is to guide the previous incarnation. So that will be guide the fifth density being, the fourth density being, and the third density, and so on, right? So if we are on the third density, we're always trying to go up onto the next density. So we are looking in a way to the higher self of that of the fourth density. But that fourth density being is being guided again by the sixth density, and so on. So in a way we could say we are the avatars of our sixth density collective consciousness. It's just like breaking down, right? We are that fractal of Source. We're like all that cosmic energy into one being. And does the higher self have a higher self? Ra explains that it's like a mid-seventh density higher self that guides the sixth density self, but it never infringes on the law of confusion or the law of free will. And neither does the sixth density higher self ever infringe on your free will. Let's get that clear. So the higher self, according to the Law of One, it is the manifested personality, or like the archetype. So when God created the universe, it created different archetypes. So from there, we are able to incarnate into lower realms, such as the 3D density or the 3D where we have the ego. So the higher self or the future self can be looked like as a director of the 3D, of what's going on right now on this physical realm. But the duty of that higher self is to give you experiences or catalysts that are going to help you to keep polarizing positive, right? Catalysts or experiences that the higher self sends you, the higher self finds value in those lessons, because that way it involves more and it serves like data or information that is brought back to Source. So in a way you can say that the higher self gives some form of structure to your 3D so that you have certain experiences, if you know what I mean. Like it sets an intention on each incarnation, so each incarnation can have a meaning of experience that you can bring back to your higher self, that it can go back to source, and in a way you're polarized and positive, right? In a way, the ultimate victory of your higher self from sixth density is to program you, your 3D, into a version that is as close as possible to the sixth density. So in a way, your higher self is trying to incarnate as much as it can on the 3D without, again, infringing on your free will. While simultaneously, the higher self is also learning from your own experiences here on the 3D. So in a way, it's also evolving with you. As much as you're elevating consciousness, so does your higher self. We can say, for example, how the higher self will program your next incarnation is for you to experience, so that way you can learn about respecting maybe other nations or races of people, and you go through that, right? So now on the other incarnation, since you learned the lessons, like you passed the test, on your next incarnation, maybe your soul no longer wants you to experience self, but you can learn through it in a different way, let's say like academically, right? By reading, and you implement that. So once that incarnation is done, like maybe you're, or even not even done, but like during that incarnation, you're able to teach others and write books about it without you actually having to experiment and live an actual, because you learned the lessons. So the thing is, the higher self will try to give you experiences, but will never decide for you, okay? So in session 70 from the Law of One, they ask if the person's higher self can manipulate the mind, body, spirit complex in the lower densities for the purpose of gaining experience. To this, Ra responds that the higher self cannot manipulate its past selves. So here's the quote. The higher self protects when possible and guides when asked, but the force of free will is paramount. The seeming contradictions of determinism and free will melt when it is accepted that there is such a thing as a true simultaneity. The higher self is the end result of all the development experienced by the mind, body, spirit complex up to that point. Meaning that the higher self is also evolving with you. So the higher self is going to come into the body as much as it can, and how we can best facilitate this process is through non-judgment. So here are like my tips. To connect to your higher self, you simply want to set the intention to align to your higher self and to the higher self's free will. It is to open your heart chakra. Why? Because we're moving from the third density to the fourth density. So the fourth density, if you see it as the density of the chakras, will be your heart chakra. So the heart-based center, where the lesson is of unconditional love. If you want to connect to a higher self, fifth and sixth, yes, you can, but you're gonna have to go through that fourth density first, right? So that's like the intention. That's why it's heart-based. When you contact your higher self, you're gonna have to surrender to this hard truths or like frequencies, to hold space for these truths and be also in equilibrium with your mind and your heart. So you don't want your ego to tell you what to do, right? Because your ego is very different from what your heart tries to tell you. You are allowing your soul to express itself, and you give it the space it needs. You simply want to feel like your intuition, whatever you receive, not try to outsmart it, because your ego will always try to prevent that. Like, why this, why that, why does it have to be like that, when your soul already knows like the answers. Because the lower self cannot know everything, it tends to convince itself that you need to prove something to the world, right, in order to be worthy, like as if you didn't have any form of inherent value. Because again, the 3D is like an illusion that we're living. And the goal from you receiving all these messages from your higher self is to integrate them. Like, you want to have a relationship with this higher self that you can communicate and start integrating whatever is sending to your way. In a way, you're like tapping into the Akashic records as well, so you're like learning and remembering and integrating those lessons here to earth. So when receiving information from your higher self, you might wonder, is this information like positive, negative? Can it be something that's maybe evil or good? So your higher self is going to always try to look for the best guidance that it can give you at that moment, but it doesn't work as it doesn't tell you what to do, again, because it respects your free will, right? The law of confusion. So because of that, our job in 3D is to have discernment and decide if we're gonna take that guidance that was given to us or not. And depending on that, we're gonna have a different reality, right? The more you're open to receiving from the heart-based channel, I guess, you're gonna understand like how easy it is to just let the higher self do its thing. The purpose is to be more balanced with the lessons that you came here to learn. And the higher self, again, cannot make decisions for you. It can only guide you. Because the higher self exists simultaneously, so meaning it's always existent. So no matter if you are not aware of a higher self or your future self, the higher self is like dreaming of you. So if you are aware, you're gonna understand like your higher self is also like living all these different like timelines or incarnations that you had. And again, your higher self is not necessarily like an angel. If you see it from the law of one, it's on the 6th density collective consciousness. So maybe they might give you a answer or guidance and you might be able to tap onto it, but maybe the other person was able to receive it at the same time, because again, we're drawing from the same like source, and their ideas might be very similar because they're coming from the same source, but the way it's played out here on the 3D is up to us, right? For example, you can say that some people live their higher selves on the 1st density, meaning like they're living from the 1st chakra, which is the survival chakra. So maybe they're always in tension, but that higher self from that 1st density is always looking out for them, right? How to stay alive, how to eat well, or like, obviously it's a different higher self than from you trying to, I guess, like connect to a higher self from other densities. The 6th density is what we as a collective say is the higher self, but we truly are trying to connect to the heart chakra, because that's our next density, which is the fourth density. So to sum it up, if your higher self from the sixth density is trying to help you bring your higher self here to earth, or as a lot of people will say, trying to bring heaven to earth, right? So this is everything for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.